What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Buffalo Bills post-game reaction show each and every week, whether it's 11:35 at night, whether it is 4:35 in the day, or 11:35 or 4:35 or 7:35. And the fact that the Bills did play a home game at 4. Or a game at 4, not a home game. Did they play a home game at 4 yet? Whatever. So the Buffalo Bills winning tonight, Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers by a score of 27-17. I'm going to break down the game. I'm going to break down what I liked about tonight. I'm going to break down what I didn't like about tonight. And there were a few things in this game that I would hope not to see coming off of a bye week. But this was a win. It'll be drawn up as a win, and we're 6-1, as Josh Allen said. We're 6-1. So going into the game, I know one thing is for sure, not to kick a team while they are down, but the Green Bay Packers are a bad team. They are not a good team. The Green Bay Packers have a lot of holes in their lineup, specifically on the offensive side of the football. For as great as Aaron Rodgers has been, the fact that he doesn't have the supporting cast that he used to have is hurting him greatly and is hurting the team. Matt LaFleur talking about, on the sideline, about how the team is so young. They're the youngest version of themselves in quite some time outside of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers might be the oldest guy on the team. Maybe Mason Crosby's a little bit older, but I actually think Rodgers might be actually the oldest guy on the roster. So Green Bay is nowhere near what they used to be. And that's not taking anything away from the Bills in this win, but we knew that going into this game. And yet Buffalo came away with a win. It was a win, but it was only a 10-point win. This game should have been a blowout. It was supposed to be a blowout. It wasn't a blowout. And there are a few reasons for that. Now, I know for certain that this offense was humming, no doubt about it, in the first half. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Devin Singletary had himself a hell of a game today. I really liked what I saw from him, especially in the first half. But looking at the stats, looking at the breakdown of the game, you look at this game and say, well, Buffalo's defense did pretty good, holding the team to 17 points. Aaron Rodgers was sacked, multiple times in this one, to say the least. But Aaron Jones had 20 carries for 143 yards. A.J. Dillon had 10 carries for 54 yards. Neither one of them found the end zone, but 7.2 yards per carry for Aaron Jones, and A.J. Dillon 5.4 yards per carry. The highest receiving mark on the night for the Green Bay Packers was Romeo Doubs, who had 4 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown, and what was one of the greatest catches in this game. One of the highlights of this game was actually from Green Bay in terms of Rodgers finding Doubs in the end zone and Doubs coming up with a crazy good catch. But you take that away, and Buffalo wins this game at the very least 27-13. But we won 27-17. Josh Allen on the night was 13 of 25 for 218 yards, 2 TDs, and 2 interceptions. About in terms of the offensive success and the off-struggle. First half was a success. But the second half, we did start to see the Buffalo Bills offense take their foot off the gas a little bit and ease up on the Green Bay Packers. Felt like in portions of the game, things were looked at as, well, we got this one. We're just going to go out here and try to move it down the field as best as we can, but we know our defense is on another level tonight. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but this Bills offense was not as good in the second half as I've seen in a long, long time. And that is a little concerning. I talked about it prior to the game that the Green Bay Packers have had a great secondary this season. That's probably the only unit all season long that has been fairly consistent for Green Bay is their secondary. And Juwan Alexander had not one but 2 interceptions. Both of Allen's picks were to the Green Bay Packers' best corner. But one looked like a throwaway, the other was just a forced throw. And Allen forced to move out of the pocket. I think when Josh Allen does make an error in a game, which whether it was this game, whether it was the game in Miami, I did see something very similar in those 2 games in comparison to the other games that we've watched this season. And that's when Josh Allen makes a mistake, whether it's an interception or a forced throw for an incompletion, and that opportunity is lost, the next time out, he really tries to force things. And most of the time it works. But tonight it didn't. And it didn't against Miami back in what was week 3. And I'm hoping that they can go back to the drawing board and learn from that in terms of playing another divisional opponent in the New York Jets, who have had an up and down, season this year, but are doing better than what most expected. Now let's talk about the plus from tonight. The pluses from tonight, as I mentioned, in offensive success, Devin Singletary, another solid yards per carry average of 4.8 with 14 carries for 67 yards. Isaiah McKenzie had a rushing touchdown. Stephon Diggs was the star of the night for the Buffalo Bills offensively, in my opinion. The stat sheet doesn't deny that. 6 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown. I really liked what I saw from our offense in terms of that first half. And Diggs and Davis were a part of that. Davis, quiet on the stat sheet, but great as a run blocker. You'll check that out on the game tape, on the film. Tremaine Edmonds had a hell of a night, 13 tackles, 16 total. And when we talk about sacks, this Buffalo Bills team had so many opportunities for more than just 2 sacks. And that's what I thought we would see. But this defensive line is turning the Buffalo Bills defense into a defensive powerhouse. This is the best defense that the Bills have had in a long time. And it is the Von Miller addition that has changed the attitude, changed the mindset, changed the aura around this team as a whole. But in particular, Von Miller being on the defensive side of the ball, you see the impact that Von Miller has on the guys around him. Tim Settle had a great night tonight. Ed Oliver had, I think, what was his best game of his career, and maybe you won't see Ed Oliver, sacking the quarterback. You won't see Ed Oliver stopping the run necessarily, because tonight the Bills had a tough time doing that. But as a disruptor of a defensive tackle, Ed Oliver had a great night, and it led to the pocket collapsing often for Aaron Rodgers, who was frustrated the entire night. Ed Oliver's only getting better. Tim Settle, a really nice, fun, big defensive tackle that can stuff the middle of the line and create, pressure up the middle that doesn't allow a quarterback to step up into the middle of the pocket. And that's what Aaron Rodgers has done so well over the course of his career. When that pocket collapses around him, he can step up, make throws that nobody can make. But that middle of the pocket was taken away for the most part tonight, and Aaron Rodgers was forced to essentially roll out or rely on the run game. And that was a great game plan from the Buffalo Bills and Leslie Frazier to collapse the middle of the pocket and not allow Aaron Rodgers to step up. That's what teams try to do every single week, but trying to do it and being able to do it are 2 different things, of course. So this Bills defense, I think, is far better than what they were in 2021, 2020. I haven't seen a dominant pass rush with the amount of blitzes or lack thereof. And I talked about this in the last episode of the show last week with Cole Schroeder, in the sense that the Bills don't blitz, and yet they have the highest pressure rate of any defense in the National Football League. They blitz 13% of the time, but to get to the quarterback in terms of hurries, pressures, 44% of the time. It's remarkable. It's remarkable that it makes you wonder if they did blitz as much as some of these other defenses do, like the Pittsburghs, the Baltimores of the world, the San Franciscos of the world, what would their sack total be? Would they be better? Would they be worse? That's a very fun topic to debate. But this was probably the best showing that the defense has had in a really long time. And that says a lot because this defense has been getting better, incrementally better each and every week. But in terms of pressure and in terms of hurrying and in terms of frustrating, I think they did a really good job tonight at doing that. And I think that's why the Bills ran away with this one. Because let's face it, if Josh Allen made those 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions, if the Bills were playing, a KC, that would have been very tough to come back from. But fortunately, they were playing Aaron Rodgers and a hodgepodge group of receivers, as well as Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, who really didn't get anything going until tonight. So I'd like to mention, too, during these post-game shows, as you see in the bottom left corner, that's my social media handle for Twitter, at Ryan Thomas Take. As well, at Ryan Thomas Take on Instagram. You can feel free to follow me on there. I appreciate comments. So fire away your comments, maybe your concerns on what we saw tonight from the Buffalo Bills. Granted, it was a win. It'll be written as a win. It'll go into the win column. A green check mark will be next to this game. But there were a lot of things that I just didn't really like tonight in terms of the second half in particular. We moved to 6-1, but there was some sloppiness. Dan Hogg says losing Poyer is going to hurt if he misses multiple games. I agree with you, Dan. This is an ongoing issue with these injuries that the Bills have had. And to be honest with you, Jordan Poyer seems like he's been banged up. He has not been 100% really since the season started. And it just seems like one thing after another. I'm wondering if the body of Jordan Poyer is simply breaking down based on the position that he plays and the way he plays it, frankly. Ken Zintel says the run defense was suspect. I would agree. There were moments where we played off thinking that Green Bay was going to pass and Green Bay was running, and it left a lot of openings for Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, who are 2 very different running backs. And I talked about this in the pregame show, why Green Bay waited 8 weeks to start to run the football and relied on an old, aging quarterback to throw to receivers that are far too green, pun intended, far too young in the National Football League, far too unwilling to really prove anything. I mean, these guys, they've had the same guys almost each and every week. I know they've got some injuries. Randall Cobb is out. Alan Lazard is out. But the guys behind those guys have been the same guys they've had since the season started, and no receiver, not one receiver on Green Bay, has really stepped up and has shown, hey, I want to be here. I want to be one of these guys that Aaron Rodgers can rely on. Not one of them have done that. So Ken Zinchel also throws out a shout-out to Matt Milano and Ed Oliver. Matt Milano had a great day, great night, I should say. Ed Oliver, like I said, this is probably the best game of his career tonight. And, you look at Stephon Diggs and what he does each and every week. 100 yards here, touchdown there. One game he had 3 touchdowns this year. I mean, there is truly elite players on this team. Josh Allen is one of them. Stephon Diggs is the other one of them. But I think those guys, to me, we knew what they were going to do this year. We knew who they were last year. We knew Gabe Davis was even going to break out this year. But I underestimated. I really did. And I'm happy to say it. I underestimated how big an addition Von Miller was going to be to this team. I knew Von Miller was going to be a big addition, and that he's a great player. But I did not know that Von Miller would have the impact on the other guys that he has had. I knew Von Miller would put up stats. I knew Von Miller would have, double-digit sacks probably by the end of the year. 10, 11, 12. He's already got 6. Maybe, actually, I think 7 now. I think he had one tonight. Maybe I'm wrong, but at the very least, he's going to end up in the double digits. We're not even really essentially halfway through the season, and he's already got 6. So he's on pace for those double-digit amount of sacks. I really thought that he would be a great addition, but what has shocked me is what he's been able to do for the guys around him. And that is a whole new level to this Buffalo Bills team that we just have not seen these last few years. We haven't seen a cold front like pass rush since the days of Mario Williams, Kyle Williams, Jerry Hughes, and Marcel Darius. And now, they had some good rotational guys then as well, but now you have the best group of defensive linemen on one team, far and away, in the National Football League. I'm talking, the Boogie Bashams, AJ Epenesas, the Gregory Rousseaus, the guys that can rotate in with the guys that they have. There's no starting four. It's the Buffalo Bills defensive line unit. It's very fun to watch those guys go in and out every single week, almost on a play-by-play, snap-by-snap basis. So I had to throw that out there in terms of my take on that. Arcadia says, even though Green Bay was running the ball, it didn't seem the D was in a run-stop scheme. And that's because they weren't. I do think that the Bills defensively thought that, leading up to this one, the Green Bay Packers hadn't really ran the ball as adamantly as they should have been. So would they carry that strategy in? And they had to prepare for a guy by the name of Aaron Rodgers, so they thought that Green Bay would rely on Rodgers more, just like they have the last few weeks. And they didn't. They actually did what I thought they should have been doing all along, and using the run game to open up the pass game with the receivers that they don't have rather than receivers that they do have. They're over-relying on a position unit and their wide receiver unit, the wide receiver group, that is just not good. It's just simply not good. It's a hodgepodge group of guys that some of them have been on other teams. Obviously, Sammy Watkins is one of them, who was a non-factor tonight. He did absolutely nothing. So, can't say I'm shocked on that front because of who we have lining up against those guys. So it is what it is. Justin Marchesny says, great win by the Bills, but I agree with you, Green Bay isn't a good team. And I also agree that this should have been a blowout, but on to the Jets, and I love your take on the game. Thank you, Justin. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. I love the Bill Russell. I believe that's the Bill Russell tribute photo. That's pretty awesome. Bill Russell's a legend, to say the least. Rest in peace to one of the GOATs. Chris Madison says, I'm glad that no matter what part of our team is not clicking, that we still keep winning. I love that take, because to me, that's the mark of a good team. Good teams win. Great teams find ways to win when adversity hits. It sounds cliche, it sounds corny, but you go back to those teams of the New England Patriots, the greatest dynasty that we've ever seen. Granted, I hated every minute of it, but you got to give credit where credit is due in terms of how they were able to win for so long and what ways did they find, how did they find ways to win consistently. And it's as if, when one guy would leave, they'd replace him with somebody else. That's a whole other topic. But in a game, when Tom Brady couldn't find such and such, he found somebody else. They always made adjustments. And I think that's what great teams need to do. And it's not just the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots were great. The Colts were great, obviously, with Peyton Manning. He had a great little run there with Denver. Pittsburgh Steelers with Big Ben. These last, 10, 15 years. And obviously Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And, watching this game and comparing Allen and Rodgers, it's amazing to me. Because I do think Josh Allen now reminds me of a prime Aaron Rodgers. But Josh Allen isn't even in his prime yet. And I think he could be potentially even better. And I think especially after watching that second half, we've seen better than that from him this season and last year and the year before that. So it was just a weird second half. But in terms of like Aaron Rodgers and his career and what he's done, he's had a great career, but I don't want to say only one Super Bowl, but with as great a career as he's had, you'd think he'd have more than one Super Bowl. And the same thing goes for Peyton Manning. With as great a career as he had, his last year he won his second Super Bowl. He's had one of the greatest careers of all time. position aside, just player, person, everything for what he did for the game. So, would I take Josh Allen having the career of Aaron Rodgers to date? No, I would choose the second door that is the door of the unknown that could lead to multiple Super Bowls, could lead to Josh Allen, God forbid, being the Dan Marino of his era, where Dan Marino was a great quarterback, one of the best, most consider in terms of just player and skill, Dan Marino to be one of the best quarterback of all time, but he didn't win a Super Bowl. So the other guys in that era kind of get propped up a little bit more than he did, and he got buried by guys like Joe Montana, even Troy Aikman, who was nowhere near physically, in my opinion, as a passer, as good as Marino was, but was a winner and won when it counted. So, yeah, that's a whole interesting topic that somebody asked me on another show. Would I take Josh Allen having the career of Aaron Rodgers, these next 15 years? And yeah, it would lead to one Super Bowl, but I think the Bills should win the next, 3 out of 5 Super Bowls. I'm thinking the Bills should win a Super Bowl this year and maybe next year and, maybe the year after that. I don't think I'm crazy in saying that. This team is very, very good. They consistently find ways to win. They win as a team. They play as a team. And they have a very, very underrated head coach that doesn't get nearly enough credit for what he has done for this franchise. Chris Madison says, when Buffalo starts getting the games where wind and snow takes away our pass game, can our run game step up enough and win these late season games? That's a very interesting question, Chris. I think this goes to what I've just heard and what I've read these last few weeks in regards to the Bills possibly trading for a running back. And, it was reported by a lot of people. And whether you want to consider this podcast a source of sports information or not, that's up to you. I would like to think I do a good job of keeping everybody informed. I, quote unquote, reported that the Buffalo Bills were in on Christian McCaffrey, and they were. It came to be found out that the Carolina Panthers are fielding offers from the San Francisco 49ers, the LA Rams, and the Buffalo Bills. And that's not me saying it. That's Dan Patrick saying it. That's people in the know, in the biz, Rich Eisen, saying that, yeah, they were in on that. It didn't happen. I'm not saying it should have happened. I'm not saying the Bills screwed the pooch by not getting him. What I'm saying is when the Bills go out and they're interested in a player and they don't get him, doesn't necessarily mean that that's not going to be reattempted with another player, okay? So if the Bills are interested in a running back, Christian McCaffrey, and don't get him, then the attention deviates to, well, what other running backs are available that the Bills could go after? Saquon Barkley, potentially. Alvin Kamara, potentially. Cam Akers, potentially. Kareem Hunt, potentially. There's a lot of guys. Those are talented players. Say what you want about Cam Akers. I don't know what the situation is exactly over there in LA and why it hasn't worked out. Cam Akers was one of the best running back draft prospects in the last 5 to 10 years. It just hasn't worked out. He needs a fresh start. When a player and a team realize that a guy needs a fresh start, he's got to go. He's got to go quick. So I think that's what's going to happen with Cam Akers. I could see him getting sent packing. The question is, are the high character Buffalo Bills going to put themselves in a situation where they get a player that has baggage? I think they've learned a lot from the Matt Araiza situation that, dare I say, they didn't handle it as well as I had hoped initially. Upon hearing reports and things like that, initially we couldn't really make a conclusion to it, but as time went on, those 48 hours, they had to get him out of there, and I think they the points. So yeah, uh, that